NPC members elect top state council officials, with Ding Shuixiang becoming the executive vice premier. Chief Executive John Lee leaves for Beijing to attend the NPC closing ceremony and meet central government officials. And more protests in France as the Senate approves a pension reform plan. Hello and welcome to TVB News. In Beijing, members of the National People's Congress today elected the country's new vice premiers, state councilors, and top officials of the various ministries and commissions. Fresh faces filled the positions, with Ding Shuixiang becoming the executive vice premier. Timothy Lee tells us more.
Elections took place this morning for a number of state council candidates nominated by Premier Li Qiang during the 5th plenary meeting of the first session of the 14th NPC. President Xi Jinping was the first to cast his vote, followed by other members of the Politburo Standing Committee, as well as Vice President Han Zheng.
Ding Shuixiang, 赞成.
Among those elected into the upper echelon of the state organ is Politburo Standing Committee member Ding Shuixiang, now serving as the executive vice premier. Former National Development and Reform Commission Chairman He Lifeng, former party secretary of Shanxi Province Liu Guozhong, and former party secretary of Liaoning Province Zhang Guoqing were also elected vice premiers. Newly elected state councilors include Li Shangfu, who is now also the Minister of National Defense, Minister of Public Security Wang Xiaohong, Secretary General of the State Council Wu Zhenglong, former party secretary of Guizhou Province Shen Yiqin, and Minister of Foreign Affairs Qin Gang. With his signature, President Xi confirmed the appointment of the individuals before they took their constitutional oath of office. The meeting also resulted in the re-elections of other top officials, such as Yi Gang, who remains as governor of the People's Bank of China, and Ma Xiaowei as head of the National Health Commission. Chen Yixin will stay as Minister of State Security, while Li Xiaopeng, son of former Premier Li Peng, retains his position as Minister of Transport. Meanwhile, Zheng Shanjie replaced He Lifeng as chairman of the National Development and Reform Commission. The first session of the 14th National People's Congress officially ends tomorrow, with the NPC set to vote on the nation's budget. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
Chief Executive John Lee is flying to Beijing today. He said he will put forth Hong Kong's agenda to various mainland leaders with updates on the government's intended action on the recent anthem mistake at a sports game. Jackie Lin with more.
Chief Executive John Lee is traveling to Beijing again. That's less than a week after he returned from the capital. Staying there for a week, he will attend the closing ceremony of the National People's Congress and meet with members of the central government. Lee said that's to help various central ministries and authorities understand Hong Kong's actual situation, so as to rally their support for the SAR's policy and governance. This time, the city leader is leading a delegation of 8 bureau chiefs, including Tourism Chief Kevin Yeung, Security Chief Chris Tang, and Eric Zhang, the city's head on mainland affairs. Lee also congratulated President Xi on his re-election before departing the city. And when asked about the latest anthem mistake at an ice hockey game in Bosnia, Lee reiterated such blunders are unacceptable, as the national anthem represents the dignity of a nation. He said authorities will continue discussions with Google. He said these incidents happened mainly because of the incorrect results on the search engine. He said as a large corporation, Google has some moral and legal responsibilities to protect the national anthem. An idea echoed by Secretary for Culture, Sports and Tourism Kevin Yeung. Speaking to the press this morning, he said the Sports Federation and Olympic Committee is due to hand in a final report on the case. Yang said follow-up actions will be deliberated after the report is received, and if investigations show that the Hong Kong team is at fault, the government will adopt a solemn and severe approach to handle this latest anthem debacle. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
Meantime, Hong Kong is facing a shortage of dentists, and Secretary for Health Lo Chung-mau said one way to address the problem is for dentistry students to initially practice for 1 year at a public healthcare facility after graduation. But Lo stressed that there is currently no set timetable for the same measure to be applied to students specializing in other medical fields. Timothy Lee reports.
For the past few years, Hong Kong has been suffering from a shortage of manpower in the healthcare sector, including the number of dental surgeons. In a bid to solve this issue, the government suggested mandating fresh dentistry graduates to work at public healthcare facilities for 3 years, including 1 year of practice. Speaking with TVB News, Hong Kong's health chief Lo Chung-mau noted that many in the city who oppose the measure do not understand the desperate situation facing the dental industry.
First of all, we are short of manpower in the healthcare sector, and the dentistry, dental surgeons is one of the key elements, both in terms of the total number of dentists in Hong Kong. We have only 0.37 per thousand population and a very aging dental profession. And also we look at the number of, we noticed that among our staff in the dental clinics, about 28.3% of them are going to retire in the next 5 years. So these are very alarming numbers, and that's why we have to resort to measures to try to improve this healthcare situation in dentistry. We are not looking at just one measure.
Lo emphasized that nurturing a dental student requires around $3 million worth of resources. But some in the dental industry believe that the change will only benefit those working government jobs, noting that dental surgeons in the public healthcare system mainly serve as government employees. The health chief said that while his department guarantees healthcare services for those who work for the government, it has not neglected ordinary citizens and continues to provide public services such as the school dental care and emergency services. Regarding other medical specialists, Lo stressed that there is no set timetable for the implementation of similar measures. He added that he believes attracting non-locally trained personnel will help address the shortage in manpower. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
Overseas, the French Senate adopted President Emmanuel Macron's pension reform plan Saturday night, as up to 1 million people took to the streets across the country in protest. 12 people were arrested during skirmishes in the capital, Paris. It was the 7th such demonstration, which included strikes since the plan was first announced in mid-January. Tracy Furness has more.
Skirmishes between violent protesters and police marked a demonstration in Paris Saturday as protesters torched rubbish bins, threw projectiles, lit up firecrackers and attempted to set up barricades, prompting riot police to disperse crowds with tear gas. Police arrested 12 people, although most of the protests, made up of unions, youth workers, families and retirees, remained peaceful. The director of a cleaning union in the north of France said they were still asking Macron to listen to workers. But he's playing deaf. These reforms are really being rejected by all workers. He must withdraw these reforms, he said. But later that night, 195 members of the upper house of the French parliament voted for the plan. The key measure is to raise the retirement age by 2 years to 64. 112 voted against the reform. Prime Minister Elizabeth Bourne tweeted that the reform will guarantee the future of our pension system. Now that the Senate has adopted the bill, it will be reviewed by a joint committee of lower and upper house lawmakers on Wednesday. If the committee agrees, a final vote in both chambers is likely to take place on Thursday. According to the police, nearly 400,000 people marched through various cities across the country Saturday, but the unions put the number at 1 million. Meanwhile, strikes continue at the major French oil refineries and depots, while national and regional rail services remain disrupted. And rubbish on the streets of Paris continue to pile up on the streets. The French unions are calling for the government to organise a citizens' consultation as soon as possible. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
Welcome back. In the UK, public broadcaster the BBC is in crisis. Key presenters of its flagship football program, Match of the Day, refused to work on Saturday in solidarity with suspended host Gary Lineker. Freelance presenter Lineker was deemed to have breached the BBC's neutrality guidelines for staff. He posted a tweet criticizing the British government's new policy on asylum seekers that would see them detained and swiftly deported. Nazvi Karim reports.
In his high-profile footballing career spanning 567 matches for England, Barcelona, Tottenham, Leicester and Everton, Gary Lineker never received a yellow card. On Saturday, Britain's popular host of Match of the Day was shown a straight red card by the BBC for a tweet about Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's new asylum law, the language of which Lineker likened to that of Nazi Germany. The fallout continued to snowball, with Lineker's colleagues Alan Shearer, Ian Wright, Alex Scott and commentary teams refusing to turn up for the broadcast of Saturday's English Premier League games. The programme was reduced to a 20-minute highlights package as politicians from the left and right waded into the controversy.
The BBC is not acting impartially by caving in to Tory MPs who are complaining about Gary Lineker. They've got this one badly wrong, and now they're very, very exposed, as is the government, because at the heart of this is the government's failure on the asylum system.
Wouldn't want to silence anybody's opinions. I know he'll argue that he's not a politics presenter or a news presenter or so on, but he's clearly overstepped the mark here. I mean, what he said was grossly offensive, and he doesn't seem to be showing any contrition for that.
Sunak was quoted as saying it was an internal matter for the BBC and Lineker to resolve. The BBC's Director General Tim Davie apologised to football fans, adding that he would not resign over the crisis and that they are trying to get the programme back on air.
It's this balance between free speech and impartiality. And I honestly do not believe, despite a lot of the commentary, that this is about left or right. It's about our ability. We're fierce champions of democratic debate, free speech. But with that comes the need to create an impartial organisation.
Lineker himself has been reluctant to talk about the issue, but has no regrets over his tweet.
Anything about the tweet, Gary? Do you regret sending the tweet at all?
No. Do you stand by what you said?
Sorry?
Do you stand by what you said in your tweet?
Of course.
Nazvi Karim, TVB News.
In the U.S. state of California, some worried customers rushed to withdraw their funds from banks after the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank. On Friday, Silicon Valley Bank, or SVB, became the largest bank to fail since the 2008 financial crisis. This marks a sudden collapse that roiled global markets and left billions of dollars belonging to companies and investors stranded. U.S. President Joe Biden has spoken with California Governor Gavin Newsom about the bank's failure and efforts to address the situation. But the White House did not offer details. Meanwhile, British Chancellor of the Exchequer Jeremy Hunt said today he is working to avoid or minimize damage resulting from the chaos engulfing the UK arm of SVB, or Silicon Valley Bank. A Northern California agricultural community famous for its strawberry crop has been forced to evacuate. This came after the Pajaro River's levee was breached by flooding from a new atmospheric river that pummeled the state. Across the Central Coast's Monterey County, more than 8,500 people were under evacuation orders and warnings on Saturday. They include 1,700 from the community of Pajaro, where many residents are farm workers. More than 50 people there have been rescued. Crews are working to fix the levee. The storm marked the state's 10th atmospheric river of the winter. The sister of an ex-union leader and the brother of an ex-opposition veteran have been released on bail after being arrested yesterday on suspicion of perverting the course of justice. Marilyn Tang is the sister of Elizabeth Tang, the wife of former opposition lawmaker Lee Chuk-yan. Elizabeth Tang was arrested earlier over suspected collusion with foreign elements under the national security law. Also out on police bail is lawyer Frederick Ho. The 65-year-old is the brother of former lawmaker Albert Ho and was arrested for the same reason as Marilyn Tang. The pair are required to report to police mid-April. A truck nearly plummeted off a hillside on Lungchung Road in Kowloon this afternoon. The vehicle's driver and passenger reported feeling unwell and were sent to hospital for treatment. The truck could be seen on the verge of falling off the hillside. The 50-year-old driver and 41-year-old passenger were trapped in the vehicle. They were rescued by fire services personnel. That's the news. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.